Let's talk about getting pulled over while being black. This series is about knowing your rights and exercising them effectively. And though I am an attorney, this video is not legal advice and should not be construed as such. If you need advice tailored to your specific circumstances, make sure you consult an attorney in your area. Now, that said, here's what you need to know about getting pulled over. Number one is you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, y'all know the rest, right, can and will be used against you, which means that outside of what you're required to give law enforcement, you don't need to talk. So what are you required to give? One, you need to identify yourself. Most states will require you to identify yourself, and some states will require you to identify yourself, and if you do not, then law enforcement has the right to arrest you. So keep that in mind. So you need to identify yourself and provide your name. Next thing you have to provide is a copy of your driver's license, your registration, and proof of insurance. Most of us have been pulled over before. You've probably had to provide that information. That's all you're required to provide. You're not required to tell them where you're going, where you're coming from, who you know, where you've been, or anything else, right? Do you know why I'm pulling you over? No, I do not, sir or ma'am. You're not required to tell them why you think that they're pulling you over. Name, driver's license, registration, proof of insurance. That's it. This is not the time to argue about why you were being pulled over. This is not the time for you to argue with them about the fact that they're always harassing you, which they may be, or anything else. It's not the time to provide explanations or clarification or anything else. That time will come when you are fighting your ticket. We're going to do a whole nother series about how to fight your traffic tickets if you get pulled over and you end up with a ticket. But for these purposes, name, driver's license, registration, proof of insurance. Number two, you may be asked to step outside of your vehicle. If you're asked to step outside of your vehicle, first thing you must remember is you still have the right to remain silent. So just because you step outside of your vehicle doesn't mean that you're now required to answer questions. This also doesn't mean that you're required to give consent for them to search you or to search your vehicle. Now, if you're asked to step outside of your vehicle, you can go ahead and expect that you'll probably get a pat down. The purpose of a pat down is for law enforcement to pat the outer portion of your clothing to ensure that you don't have a weapon on you that can harm them or anyone else. So expect to get a pat down, but understand that you're not required to provide consent for them to search you or your vehicle. If you do not consent and you make it clear to them, that doesn't mean that they're still not going to go ahead and search you. The purpose of not providing consent and vocalizing that is so that in the event that they search you or your vehicle without your consent and you made it clear, you're reserving your rights to use later on in your case. And your attorney very well may be able to get your charges dropped or reduced or other remedies available to you based on the fact that you told them that you did not give consent and they searched you anyways. If you do not agree or consent to them searching you or your vehicle, make sure you let it be known. Number three, if you are detained, which means you're not free to go and you're required to stay there, or if you are arrested, you then have the right to an attorney. That means that, one, your right to remain silent is still in effect. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Again, this is not the time for explanations and arguments. This is the time to let them know I am not going to answer any questions until I, one, have my attorney present or have had the opportunity to speak with my attorney. At that point, they are supposed to, keywords, supposed to stop questioning you. Does that mean that they will? Possibly not. They may continue to try to get answers from you. Law enforcement is allowed to lie. They're allowed to use different tactics to try to get information and confessions from you. So that's one thing that you have to remember is that when they're trying to interrogate you, if you do not agree to answer questions and you are invoking your right to remain silent and your right to an attorney, make it clear, I'm not answering any questions without my attorney present or until I've had the opportunity to speak with my attorney. Don't sign anything. Don't answer anything. Don't try to explain away anything, because that could get us in a lot of trouble that we don't necessarily need to be in, because it may be misinterpreted or misrepresented. If you cannot afford an attorney, then you have the right to have one appointed to represent you if you are charged with a crime. So just remember, even if you have not yet retained an attorney, you still have the right to not answer any questions before you've had the opportunity to speak to an attorney. Let's talk about a few things that we can do to hopefully minimize the chances that your situation is going to go all the way left in a negative direction. Now, I'm not going to go over the basics of not running, not resisting, keeping your hands where they should be so that so they can see them and all of that stuff, because we all know those rules, and we also know that sometimes even when those rules are followed, it ends up in death or serious bodily injury. So we're going to talk about some other things that we can do to try to minimize the risks. Try to keep your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance in a place that you don't have to reach for. So instead of keeping it in your glove box where you typically would have to reach, those CD covers that we used to have back in the day, CD, DVD holders that go in the visor of your vehicle, you can order one of those. I'll drop a super cheap link down in the comments. You can order it off Amazon, and you can keep your driver's license, your registration, and your proof of insurance right in there so that when law enforcement comes, you can literally look up. My information is up here. It's really easy to identify that it's just paper and plastic, right? There's no chance that a weapon is going to be sitting right there in the CD holder, and that narrative can't be created that you were reaching for a weapon or anything like that. So keep it in a place so that you don't have to reach. And also, if you don't have one of the CD holders, put it in a money clip and clip your money clip to the visor. Put it in an envelope and put your paper clip on the visor. The goal is to make sure that, if possible, you don't have to reach for your information that's going to be required for you to provide for law enforcement. If you have an attorney, keep your attorney's card on you at all times in your little visor or your holder up top would be helpful, so that you can always refer to it and easily access your attorney's number if it's not already in your phone, and you can show it to law enforcement when they're asking you questions and you say, I need to contact my attorney first. If you do not have an attorney and you have the ability to get one, it's always a good idea to have an attorney on retainer that you can rely on, who knows you. Specifically, this is helpful for people who already know that in their area they're constantly already harassed by police, law enforcement, accused of doing things that they may not have done. If you've had a past and you've gotten in trouble before and you've had some run-ins with the law and you know that they're giving you a hard time, the perfect opportunity to make sure that you already have an attorney ready to go in the event that something goes down. So make sure you have their information. And if you do not have an attorney, again, just make sure that you don't answer any questions and you let law enforcement know, I am electing not to answer any questions until I've had the opportunity to speak to an attorney. Remember to write down any information that you can remember about the incident that happens when you interact with law enforcement. So badge numbers, of course, patrol car numbers, descriptions of the officers, and specifically write down what happens as close to when it happened as possible, so that if you need it later on, you'll have it readily available. If you are injured, make sure that you immediately, at minimum, take photos or have photos taken, and if possible, you need to seek medical attention so that you can document whatever injuries happen. And this is especially important if you get into a tussle or any physical altercation with law enforcement. And finally, of course, we all know right now it's extremely important, if you have the ability and you feel like things are going crazy, to go ahead and whip those phones out. Hit that record button, sit it in your cup holder so you're just recording and you have that security of knowing that what's happening in your interaction is being caught on camera. Hopefully you won't need it, but you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. They have, Siri has this new thing on iPhones that will allow you to set up your phone so that you can automatically let people know when you're getting pulled over, and it will automatically record. There are dash cams that you can purchase for, a pretty inexpensive price, and even things like eyeglasses with, cameras in them so that you can record while you have glasses on. So unfortunately, we have to be creative, right? Our goal is to make sure that we always get home safely, to minimize the conflict, minimize the interaction going crazy, and again, exercise and preserve your rights. So, questions? Make sure you go ahead and drop them in the comments. If you have anyone who could use this information, please make sure that you share this video to your friends, family, and followers. I am Marissa V. Grayson, the founder and managing attorney of The Collective Legal. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure you go ahead and follow us on social media. We are at The Collective Legal, and visit us on the web, www.thecollectivelcm.com, where you can also find our free resource center. So I look forward to seeing you on the next video, and until then, have a good one.